My sister screamed cheater at my graduation. In front of everyone. She thought she was ruining my big day, but she had no clue I was about to dismantle her entire life with a single microphone. She'd spent years trying to break me down, but she made one fatal mistake. She assumed I'd just take it, that I'd crumble in front of a crowd. But this was the one day I had earned, the one day that was supposed to be mine. She didn't realize, I was done being the quiet one. This wasn't going to be my humiliation. It was going to be hers. People always talk about sisterhood like it's this magical, built-in best friendship. I always wondered what that must feel like. My sister, Jenna, is 2 years older than me, and from day one, I wasn't a sister. I was competition. She didn't see a baby sister to look out for. She saw a rival for our parents' attention, for the spotlight, for every last scrap of validation in our house. Jenna was the golden child, and it wasn't an accident. She built that image with terrifying precision. She was charming, beautiful, and the kind of popular girl in school everyone wanted to be. At home, she was the perfect daughter who never did anything wrong. My parents, especially my mom, were totally captivated. They saw her as a reflection of their own success, and ate up everything she said. They celebrated every tiny thing she did, and just threw money at any of her mistakes to make them disappear. And me. I was different. Quiet where she was loud, studious where she was social. I was the girl spending Friday nights in the library, not at a party. My wins were academic, the result of non-stop hard work. But in my family, they were always met with a polite, "That's nice, honey." An A+ on a physics final was nothing next to a picture of Jenna in a homecoming crown. It wasn't that my parents were cruel, not in an obvious way. It was more of a slow burn neglect, a constant feeling that I was living in the shadow of a much bigger star. The rivalry, if you can call it that, since I wasn't even trying to compete, blew up when we both decided to major in biomedical engineering. I genuinely loved it. I was fascinated by how technology could save lives. For Jenna, I'm pretty sure she just did it for the prestige. It sounded impressive, and that's what mattered to her. She got into the program at our state university a couple of years before I did, and it became her whole identity. She was Jenna, the future engineer. My parents were so proud. The only problem was, Jenna wasn't built for that kind of work. She was used to skating by on charm and last-minute cramming. In a field that demanded real dedication, her old tricks fell flat. She struggled, her grades dropped, and all she did was complain about her unfair professors. Then, in her 3rd year, she dropped out. Of course, she didn't call it a failure. She spun this dramatic story about realizing her true passion was marketing, where her people skills were a better fit. My parents bought it, hook, line, and sinker, praising her bravery. They co-signed a lease on a slick downtown apartment and funded her new, much easier major. 2 years later, I got into the same engineering program she'd abandoned. I didn't do it to spite her, but I know that's how she took it. My acceptance was a declaration of war. The day I got my letter, she gave me a brittle smile and said, "Wow. Good for you. It's a lot harder than it looks." It wasn't a warning. It was a threat. My college years were a battle, but the enemy wasn't my coursework, it was my own sister. Her sabotage was sneaky at first. A key textbook would go missing a week before an exam, only to show up in her room after the test. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I must have grabbed it by mistake," she'd say, all wide-eyed innocence. During my sophomore year, our entire group project folder got wiped from the cloud the night before it was due. We stayed up all night trying to fix it, but our grades took a hit. I had this sick feeling I knew who did it, but I had no proof. When I carefully brought it up with my parents, My mom just looked at me with this deep disappointment. Why would you even think such a terrible thing about your sister? She asked, her voice ice cold. After that, I learned to keep my mouth shut. I backed up everything on multiple drives, password protected every file, and trusted no one. The thing is, I was actually good at this. Where Jenna quit, I thrived. I made the dean's list every single semester. I landed a prestigious research internship. My senior thesis was on a cutting-edge topic. Every success was a huge milestone for me, but for Jenna, it was just another reminder of her own failure. Her jealousy went from a low simmer to a raging fire. The months before graduation felt like walking on eggshells. The closer it got, the weirder Jenna acted. It was this bizarre mix of being sickly sweet one minute and passive-aggressive the next. She'd hug me and gush about how proud she was, then turn around and make a cut-down comment disguised as a joke. "Wow, summa cum laude," she said one night, looking at my honors cord that came in the mail. "They must have made the classes easier since I was there." She laughed. My parents laughed. I just forced a smile. Starting a fight was pointless. I'd just be too sensitive. Then I started noticing small, creepy things. I was finishing the presentation for my thesis. I came home one day and found my password-protected laptop open. I knew I had closed it. When I checked the file, key slides with my data visualizations were corrupted. My stomach just dropped. I spent the next 10 hours rebuilding them from my backups, my heart pounding with rage and fear. It felt like a warning shot. I knew she had a key to my apartment for emergencies. I called her, trying to keep my voice steady. "Were you in my apartment today, Jenna?" Her denial was instant and offended. "What? No. Why would you ask me that? God, you're so paranoid." She was an expert at turning it back on me. With no proof, I just looked crazy. That night, I changed the locks. The week of graduation was the worst. At a family dinner, Jenna spent the whole night making comments about my study habits. "I don't know how you do it, Alex," she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "I barely saw you leave your room for 4 years. You must have found some kind of shortcut." My dad, trying to be nice, said, "Nonsense. Alex just has a brilliant work ethic." He meant it as a compliment to me, but it was a direct hit at Jenna's lack of discipline, and I saw the flash of fury in her eyes. The word shortcut stuck with me. It was so specific. It felt like she was planting a seed. I tried to ignore it, telling myself I was just stressed and that for one day, she could just be happy for me. The day before graduation, I was in the library when I got an email from University IT. "A suspicious login attempt to your student account has been blocked." The attempt was made from an IP address located downtown. My blood ran cold. I knew exactly where her apartment was. She was still trying, right up to the last minute, to find a way to take me down. I took a deep breath. I'd been playing defense for years, just trying to survive her attacks. But this was different. She wasn't just trying to trip me up, she wanted to destroy my credibility. The accusation she was building was becoming crystal clear. And that's when it hit me. The fear, it was just gone. Replaced by this cold, hard certainty. She was going to make a scene at my graduation. She was going to turn my biggest moment into a public shaming. And in that moment, I decided I wasn't going to just defend myself. The quiet girl who took all the hits to keep the peace. She was gone. If Jenna was going to light a match, I'd be ready with a fire hose. And it wouldn't be filled with water. It would be filled with the one secret she'd worked so hard to bury. Graduation day was bright and sunny, a total mismatch for the storm churning in my stomach. Putting on my cap and gown felt like putting on armor. I looked in the mirror, my eyes were tired, but they were steady. I had fought for this day, and I refused to let her ruin it. My family was waiting outside. My parents were beaming, cameras out. My mom fussed over my gown. "Oh, you look so wonderful, honey. We're so proud." The words felt empty, like lines from a script. Jenna stood a little off to the side, a weirdly calm smile on her face. It was the look of a predator cornering its prey. She hugged me, her arms stiff. "Big day," she whispered. "Try not to trip on your way to the stage." The ceremony started. I sat with my fellow graduates, a sea of black robes, trying to focus on the speeches, but my eyes kept drifting to my family. My parents were waving. Jenna was just staring at me, unblinking, with that same creepy smile. Then they started calling names for my department. The graduates of the College of Engineering, summa cum laude. My row stood. My heart started hammering against my ribs. Name after name, and then, Alexandra Carter. Applause washed over me. I could hear my dad's whistle. For one perfect second, it was real. I walked to the stage, the dean shook my hand and gave me my diploma. I had done it. I turned to the crowd, a real smile finally on my face. I saw my mom crying and my dad giving me a thumbs up. Then my eyes found Jenna. Her smile was gone. Her face was twisted with pure rage. She stood up. At first, I thought she was just getting a better picture. But then she pointed a finger right at me. She cheated. Her voice was shrill, shattering the celebration. A confused murmur spread through the audience. My parents looked horrified, grabbing her arm, trying to pull her down. She shook them off. She cheated her way through college. Jenna screamed, her voice cracking with a terrifying mix of rage and glee. "I have proof. She doesn't deserve that diploma." Dead silence. 2,000 pairs of eyes were glued to me, frozen in the spotlight. My smile was gone. I felt the blood drain from my face. This was her plan all along. The ambush. My first instinct was to run, to hide, to just disappear. But then, through the shock, I looked at Jenna. I saw the triumph in her eyes. She was enjoying this, feeding off my humiliation. And right then, something inside me snapped. It wasn't hot, blinding anger. It was something cold and clear. The quiet girl she bullied for 20 years was gone. In her place was someone she had never met. She expected me to cry, to crumble. I decided, right then and there, I would do none of those things. The silence in that auditorium felt like it lasted forever. I could see my parents desperately trying to shut Jenna up, their faces pale with horror. She just stood there, arms crossed, soaking it all in. The dean took a hesitant step toward the podium, probably to try and smooth things over. But I held up a hand. A small gesture, but it made him stop. I turned to him, my voice surprisingly steady. "Dean Thompson," I said, just loud enough for the stage to hear. "May I have a moment?" He looked at me, then at the thousands of shocked faces, then at my sister, still standing like a judge and jury. After a long pause, he gave a slow nod and stepped back from the podium, gesturing for me to take it. A gasp went through the crowd as I walked to the main microphone. The clicks of my heels were the loudest sound in the world. I could feel every eye on me. Was I going to cry? Launch into a denial? I gripped the podium, my knuckles white. I looked out and saw a blur of faces. I found my parents. My mom had her face in her hands. My dad looked like he'd aged 10 years in 30 seconds. Then I saw Jenna. Her smug look was gone, replaced with confusion. This wasn't in her script. I wasn't supposed to take center stage. I took a deep breath. I thought about the missing books, the corrupted files, the gaslighting, all the times I was called paranoid. I thought of all the times I'd swallowed my anger to keep a peace that was never really there. That part of me, the one who just wanted them to be proud, died right there. She wanted a public spectacle. Fine. She'd get one. I leaned into the mic. Good afternoon, I began. My voice didn't shake. I apologize for this unexpected interruption. I paused, then looked right at my sister. For the first time, a flicker of fear crossed her face. She was losing control. My sister, Jenna, has just made a very serious accusation, I continued, my voice even. She has accused me of cheating my way through a degree I have spent 4 years of my life, and countless sleepless nights, working to earn. She says she has proof. People were shifting in their seats, completely hooked. And I believe her, I said. A collective gasp. It was even louder this time. I saw Jenna's confusion morph into pure triumph. She thought I was confessing. She thought she'd won. I held up my hand to quiet the murmurs. I believe she has proof of cheating, I clarified, my voice dropping a little, drawing them in. Because she's the one who gave it to me. The confusion was now a buzzing energy. Jenna's smile faltered. You see, I said, my voice ringing with a strength I didn't know I had. To understand this, you need to understand my sister. And for that, I have to tell you all a secret. A secret she never, ever wanted anyone to know. I had them. Every single person was hanging on my next word. I looked at Jenna, the color draining from her face. The trap she'd set for me was about to snap shut on her instead. I took another slow breath, holding my sister's gaze. The fear in her eyes was now a wildfire. She knew what was coming. My sister Jenna, I started, my voice clear and strong, was a student in this very same biomedical engineering program a few years ago. Our family's golden child. But she found the coursework challenging. After struggling for 3 years, she dropped out. A low murmur rippled through the faculty section. A few professors exchanged knowing looks. They remembered her. She told our family she'd found a new passion for marketing, I went on, my eyes locked on Jenna. But the secret she's been keeping is that she didn't just drop out. She was quietly advised to withdraw before she failed out completely. Jenna was shaking her head, mouthing the word no. Ever since I got into the program, she couldn't handle, her jealousy has been active. She spent 4 years trying to make sure I wouldn't succeed where she failed. Sabotaging projects, hiding notes. When I suspected her, I was told I was being dramatic, that I was paranoid. I glanced at my parents. Their faces were ashen as the horrible truth began to click into place. But in the last 6 months, I said, my voice hardening, it got worse. My university account started having issues. Papers with deleted sections. My scholarship info was changed. I kept getting locked out from suspicious login attempts. The university's IT department was a huge help in tracking these attacks. I paused. All the unauthorized access to my student portal, every single time, was traced back to one IP address. An address registered to an apartment downtown. I tilted my head. The same apartment my parents so generously fund for my sister, Jenna. The gasp from the crowd was sharp. This wasn't just a story anymore, it was a crime. Jenna looked like she'd been slapped. But that's not the proof she was talking about, I said. Her accusation is that I cheated. And in a way, she's right. Cheating was happening. But I wasn't the one doing it. I looked right at her. For the past semester, my sister has been using her old, expired student credentials to try and frame me. She submitted parts of my thesis to SA Mills to trigger plagiarism flags. She sent me emails with malware from burner accounts to get me flagged for academic misconduct. I held up the diploma. She thought I was the same quiet little sister who would just take it. What she didn't know is that I found out about all of this 2 months ago. I didn't tell my parents. I knew they wouldn't believe me. They never have. Instead, I said, my voice ringing with finality, I went directly to Dean Thompson and the university's ethics committee. I gave them a 30-page file with IP logs, email records, sworn statements from IT, and even screenshots of her deleted social media posts bragging to friends about how she was going to expose me and prove she was the smarter one. The auditorium was dead silent. All eyes went to Dean Thompson. He stepped forward, his face grim. He didn't need the MIC. He just looked at the crowd and gave one single, firm nod. That nod was the nail in Jenna's coffin. My sister stood up here today to ruin my life, because she couldn't handle her own, I said, my voice finally thick with emotion, not sadness, but pure, righteous anger. She wanted to call me a fraud in front of 2,000 people. But the only fraud on display today is her. I looked at Jenna one last time. She had collapsed into her seat, her face in her hands, her body shaking with ugly, guttural sobs. My parents were frozen, like statues of shame, finally seeing the monster they'd enabled for so long. I have earned this diploma, I said, my voice unshakable. I have earned this honor. And I will not have it tainted by the jealousy of someone who couldn't get it herself. I turned, handed the diploma back to the stunned dean, and said into the MIC, I believe it's customary to have my picture taken. Then I walked to the spot, turned to the photographer, and gave him the biggest, brightest, most victorious smile of my life. The flash that went off felt like a new beginning. The applause started slowly, then it grew into a thunderous, roaring ovation that shook the whole room. People were on their feet, cheering. It was a wave of validation, support, and justice. Behind me, the ceremony had fallen into chaos. I could hear Jenna's sobs turning into hysterical wails and my father's urgent voice, Jenna, stop it. Not here. 2 campus security officers were calmly making their way down the aisle toward them. The show was over. I walked off the stage, down the side steps, and straight to the exit at the back. I felt hundreds of eyes on me, but the stares were different now. Not pity. Respect. My phone started buzzing. A text from my mom, where are you going? You need to come back here right now and fix this. Fix this. Even now, her first instinct was to manage the scene, not deal with the truth. Another from my dad, Alex, you have humiliated this family. Not Jenna. You? I had humiliated them by telling the truth. I put my phone on silent and walked out into the bright afternoon sun. It felt like my first real breath, after being underwater for years. I walked across campus, past happy families and laughing graduates. I felt light. The weight of my sister's hate, my family's dysfunction, it was all gone. I'd left it behind in that auditorium. Back in my small apartment, the one with the new locks, the silence was a relief. I took off my cap and gown and looked in the mirror. The tired girl from this morning was gone. The woman looking back was calm, strong, and free. Over the next hour, I had 47 missed calls. 26 from my mother, 21 from my father. None from Jenna. The voicemails were a frantic mix of anger and blame. How could you do this to your sister? My mother's voice shrieked. You aired our family's dirty laundry, my father's rumbled. You have brought shame on all of us. They still didn't get it. They never would. Their concern wasn't for me, it was for the family's reputation. By sunset, the graduation meltdown video was viral. My calm, factual takedown was a brutal contrast to my sister's screeching and collapse. The internet was overwhelmingly on my side. That evening, I ordered a pizza, opened a bottle of champagne, and sat on my floor. I didn't have my diploma yet, but I had something better. I had my dignity. I had my truth. The war was over. I had lost a family, but I had finally, completely, found myself. The university moved fast. The dean called the next morning to personally apologize, and confirm the ethics committee was closing its investigation. They officially validated my degree, and sent a formal letter that wiped away any doubt about my integrity. For Jenna, the consequences were severe. She was permanently banned from campus. The university considered pressing charges, but my parents avoided it by paying a hefty fine and making a large donation to a new student fund for academic integrity, a fund I later learned was named in my honor. My parents kept trying to reach me. The angry voicemails turned into desperate pleas to heal as a family. I knew that just meant they wanted me to forgive Jenna and pretend nothing happened, to go back to being the family shock absorber. I never responded. 2 weeks later, I packed up my apartment. I had accepted a fantastic job offer with a biotech firm 3 states away, the fresh start I needed. The day before I left, I sent one last text to the family group chat. I'm moving tomorrow to start my new life. A life free from jealousy and sabotage. My role in this family is over. Please do not contact me again. I blocked all of them. It was the hardest and easiest thing I've ever done. There was grief for the family I wished I had. There were moments of doubt. But then I'd remember the look of pure, triumphant hatred on Jenna's face, and I knew I'd made the only choice that would save me. I heard through a cousin that Jenna had a complete breakdown, dropped out of her marketing program, and moved back in with my parents. Their perfect world was shattered, and they were forced to live with the daughter they had created. Years have passed. My life is quiet and it's mine. I love my job. I've built a new family of friends who celebrate me without jealousy. The pain is gone, replaced by a deep sense of peace. I am no longer the overlooked little sister. I am Dr. Alexandra Carter, a respected engineer, a confident woman, and a survivor. Sometimes, I wonder what would have happened if I'd just crumbled on that stage. I'd have spent my life living under that lie. But I didn't. I stood up and I spoke my truth. It wasn't about revenge. It was about justice. It was about reclaiming my own story. My sister thought she was writing the final chapter of my life. She had no idea she was just handing me the microphone to write the first chapter of mine. Looking back, that day taught me a powerful lesson. Sometimes the most important boundaries you'll ever set are with the people who are supposed to love you the most. Standing up for yourself, especially when it's terrifying, is never the wrong choice. It's not about being cruel. It's about refusing to let someone else's darkness put out your light. My story had a very public ending, but I know so many people are fighting these same battles in private. So, I have to ask, what would you have done in my shoes? Was I wrong to expose my sister in such a public way? Let me know what you think down in the comments. I try to read as many as I can. And if you enjoyed this story, do me a favor and hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss what's next. Thanks for listening.